starting soon. Yeah, it says... Oh, I hear myself. I think.
The title for this one, this is episode 5, not episode 4. I will fix that. But if you're looking at the title and thinking, oh hey, communication styles, we did that last week. Yeah. So this week we're going to be talking about a different subject. We will be talking about standing up for yourself. So, while we're doing that, I'm going to attempt to see if I can change the titles live. But standing up for yourself can be a pretty daunting thing, especially if you feel like you're not confident in the first place. Let's see. But yeah, so some of this stuff is going to be a little bit of repetition as far as, you know, just talking about confidence and those basics, because they do play a huge part in this. But at the same time, yeah, it looks like it won't just automatically change it, unfortunately. That's a pity. Oh well. I tried. Anywho. So, let's, I guess, start with this. When we say standing up for yourself, we don't mean, here's how you can be aggressive or win every confrontation that you're in. Standing up for yourself is really just, if you feel like someone else is being purposefully aggressive towards you, or if you feel like they are belittling you in some way, or basically putting you in a situation that then becomes stressful to you. At a point, you know, you definitely need to stand up for yourself and make sure that you are not... how do I want to phrase this? Make sure that you're not letting people walk all over you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's always good. Yeah, we can sometimes be our own worst enemies, and you do need to make sure that you, I guess, quote, stand up for yourself, or to yourself. But I know you were doing some looking into this, and I also found an article. Let me see if I can pull this up. So what I'll do is I actually want to start going through this article and any notes that we've taken or that we want to talk about as we go through this little list from success.com. That might be an easier way to go through this to make sure we have at least a little bit of structure for the podcast. So that being said, let me pull it up on screen. Alrighty then. Yeah, so we'll start with number 1. Practice being transparent and authentic. Yep. Let me see. You can guess what they deal in, I suppose. Let's see. Let me read what they have to say. It may be difficult at times, but if you learn to express yourself openly and honestly, it will feel like a weight has been lifted from your shoulders. So often we have blah 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 blah. Takes practice, but learning to be authentic and open about what you are feeling or thinking. Okay, so there's the clarification I was looking for. Authentic and open about what you're feeling or thinking is the first step. I mean, overall, I think I'd probably agree with that, but that also, from my own experience, puts you into situations where you have to stand up for yourself more. So it's kind of a catch-22, I guess. Well, yeah, you allow yourself to be more vulnerable to it, but one, that gives you more practice, and two, it gives you more confidence in speaking your mind. And being closer to your authentic self is going to give you more confidence overall in the end, and you're going to be happier. So, while it does start presenting risks that will cause the run-ins that we're going to be talking about for this podcast, I think overall that's probably a pretty good first step. And to be fair, I haven't actually read through all of these. I just kind of skimmed through them. I was like, this'll work. I'll put this up. I don't really have anything else to say about number 1, do you? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because people can generally tell when you're not being genuine. One thing that I've noticed, actually, is that people who have visited Austin from out of town may not understand kind of the culture of Austin, and the people who have lived here long enough know the kind of culture of just not caring. Like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, like, Keep Austin Weird comes from just the idea that we don't care, you do you. And so people are more comfortable being themselves out in the open. I wasn't as much at the beginning because I still had, that introversion and stuff like that. But once I started being my more authentic self, interestingly enough, some people have said, well, I feel like you're performing, or you're putting on a performance here. I'm like, no, it's just who I am. And sometimes people are a little weirded out by people being that authentic. Again, Keep Austin Weird. I guess they're so used to everyone putting on this act on, I do this and I must act this way all the time out in public. And honestly, as long as you're not hurting anyone, there's probably a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different ways that you can act, as opposed to just always following the norm. So, being authentic is good for you, but can be a little weird and tricky sometimes. Yes. Alrighty then, so let's move on to number 2. Take small but powerful steps. Let's see, if you're struggling with being assertive, taking small steps to stand up for yourself, even just learning to walk more confidently. Okay. Head held high, shoulders back, yeah, so definitely something that we should talk about. The small steps. I wouldn't necessarily call these small steps. I would say make sure you go back to your basics with confidence. So body language is going to be very important because it's recursive. So if you slouch and fold your arms together, you're going to feel less confident and more enclosed and more distant. Whereas if your shoulders are back, your head held high, your chest is out, your arms are at your side, or even gesturing as you speak, that signals to your brain more confidence. And the more confidence you feel, the more confident your body language is going to be, and that's going to kind of spiral into all that. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, let me see what else they're talking about here. Feeling annoyed at the person who cut you off in front of Starbucks, politely tell them to move, or politely ask them to move to the back. See unfair change on a bill, blah, 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 call and dispute it. Okay. So I guess beyond the body language and the basics, what they're saying is to take small conflicts that aren't like daunting or horrifying, and just making sure that you're, I guess, going after them. Yeah. It can be a good way to practice. I just don't necessarily agree that that's going to help you in an actual stressful situation. It might be good to boost your confidence a little, at least a little bit. I'm just trying to think, because it's not bad advice, but they seem to make number 2 sound a little bit more. Well, it's two things really. It's the body language, and then it's the standing up for yourself in small ways. So let's start with this. If you feel like you are being verbally attacked, or if you are in one of these stressful situations where you feel like you have to stand up for yourself, for one reason or another, just focus on your body language at first. Because what you'll tend to do is your face might scrunch up. You might fold your arms in front of you. You might start slouching. You might, get a bit off posture. Frazzled or heavy. Your heart might start beating fast. So those are all physiological things that, again, like with all the body language that we've talked about with confidence, is going to be recursive. You're going to start feeling more of those things, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse as you let it happen. So consciously kind of open up, consciously try to make sure that you are standing up straight, that you're not frowning or crossing your arms in front of you. Just take a moment, take a breath, just a nice, easy breath, and just make sure that your posture's good. Make sure that your body language is showing confidence, not just to the other person, but to you. Well, since we're both music guys, the best way to do it would be when you breathe in, your stomach should move, not your shoulders. But I don't think that's necessarily what you were asking me. Yeah. So it's probably what you would consider like meditative breaths. So like you said, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, and then out through the nose. A couple things. So one, when you breathe through your nose, it kind of filters the air. So the air going into your lungs is cleaner, but pushing it out of your lungs. So let me put it this way, Elliot. Do you know why holding your breath hurts? No, it actually has to do with the gases that's in the air that you breathe in. Some people think it's because when you start to lack oxygen, it starts to sting, but it doesn't. It's actually a chemical reaction with the carbon dioxide. So your chest hurts when you hold your breath because there's too much carbon dioxide in there. So breathing in through your nose will make sure everything's filtered, and that's just like filtering out pollen and dust and things like that. But breathing out through your nose, it's still trying to filter it on the other way out as well, and it slows it down, meaning that your breathing out is going to be a little bit, even if it's not even noticeable, it's going to be a little bit more painful because you're letting the carbon dioxide sit in your lungs longer. So breathing out through your mouth allows you to exhale faster, get out the carbon dioxide, so that when you breathe in through your nose, it's just filtering in more air, you're getting more oxygen, and it's not as concentrated with the carbon dioxide. So that's part of why breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth is more calming than in through your nose, out through your nose, or in through your mouth, out through your mouth. It's actually something I learned in martial arts. Because the idea is that at a certain point you need to be breathing in enough air. And so we did a lot of study into what are the best ways to take breaths. When you start getting out of breath, you're breathing really heavy through your mouth. You're not getting it filtered anymore. You're just forcing more air in. And so that makes it a little bit more painful over time. So I always found that pretty interesting. So that's always just kind of been something that I guess I've just known ever since. Well, I was about to move on to number 3 anyway, so I guess that works. Number 3, when someone attacks, wait them out. I cannot tell you how many times this has either completely made a call or completely broken a call. When you work in a call center like customer service like we did, oftentimes a lot of people would tell us, hey, just, wait them out. Sometimes they just need to vent. Most of the time that works, and we're going to go over this and how to use it in these situations, but with the large variety of different types of people and communication styles we ended up dealing with, sometimes waiting them out, they think, oh, you don't care, or you're just, you're not even listening to me, and this and that. So face-to-face is a bit easier, because you can at least show that you're listening. But let's see how they phrase it here. I'll read the first couple sentences. As you grow more confident in expressing yourself, you're also going to have to learn to face those who want to override you. There will always be people whose personalities are set to attack mode. It's important that you remain calm, but assertive if you feel like someone's trying to bully you. And again, remain calm for a couple different reasons. Reason number 1, they might not actually being, attacking you. They just might not be able to communicate very well. Or you just might be in a bad mindset. So, I think that's getting into number 5. so I'm gonna hold back on that one. I'll treat when someone attacks as they put here, like bullying. So probably yelling or going off, ranting at you, things like that is probably what they're talking about in number 3. So if they are just like acting very angry and very upset, just wait, essentially. Nod. Make sure you're not closing yourself off. And we talked about that with number 2. You close yourself off, you make yourself less confident, but at the same time, they notice that, and subconsciously they feel like you're either not listening, or you don't care, or they might get all sorts of wrong impressions about you and your intentions. Right, and that's the interesting thing with body language. It almost always comes back to a loop. So that's always fun. But if you can remain calm, just okay, just let them say their piece. Nod, show interest. Make sure attempt to not cross your arms in any way. Make sure you're open, at least from the torso up. And sometimes they'll just be like, ooh, oh man, I'm sorry. I just, wow, I didn't realize I needed to get that out of my system.
And then he was very calm about it, and he just...
Okay, I just realized that after all of my attempting to make sure that I had your volume up, I just noticed that the volume was all the way down. I have no idea what OBS is doing. Oh. I really hope it hasn't just been me talking to myself the whole first part of the podcast.
Oh, I heard myself in the first part.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that, so I'll listen back to it later and see what was going on with that.
I hear myself now in the recording, because I muted it.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah. I don't know, OBS has been really weird today.
Oh no.
I mean, it's free and open source. I'm not surprised, I'm just disappointed. Anyway, but yeah, try not to be the attacker, but, we all make mistakes. And, again, it may not even be about you. They may not be attacking you for you, so if you let them just go at it, and then you're like, okay, sure. It might just calm them down. Like, they might just need to vent, and that happens. And after that, there's apologies, there's... making up if they're a friend, or just going your separate ways, and all sorts of stuff like that. But that does kind of bring us into number 4. Figure out what's really bothering you. Let me see how they define this. Going with the flow for the purposes of not making waves actually creates more stress and anxiety for yourself. That's a very roundabout way of putting it. Feel like they wanted to write words instead of actually convey meaning. Anyway, of course, mustering the courage to face something or someone that is bothering you can feel scary, but facing the issue will empower you to... Okay, none of this is defining what precisely you mean by that, but I'm assuming it has to do with the idea of figure out what's really bothering figure out what's really bothering you, like it says right there, or allow the other person to figure out what's really bothering them, I think is the other thing that it doesn't really seem to
yeah,
address.
They did a really not good job addressing that.
Yeah, like, they're good points, but they're not really addressing them that well.
Like I know a lot of people come in and be like, "Oh, Apple are
Oh, you son of a gun.
unnamed."
I'll have to cut that out later, you jerk.
Uh, it's me this week. It's unnamed company is so stupid. An unnamed company does this and that,
hmm
and it's
Ruined my
always
life.
ruined my life. And then it usually ends up something dumb, like they forgot a password
hmm
that they set themselves. It's like, is it really unnamed company, or is it kind of like you're mad kind of at yourself with a little bit mixed in with maybe whenever you went to the website, it was down for some reason,
hmm
or there was trouble navigating it. Because that's like 95% of the calls is like, oh, I went to the website, but for some reason the website was being weird. And then sometimes you can even direct them to the website, and
hmm
they're just like, oh, I could have done this myself. That
hmm
was easier than I thought.
And really, again, like, when you're talking about, like, call centers, it has nothing to do, like, they're not mad about not knowing their password. They're mad about not being able to do what it is they do with their account.
Yes.
You know? So, like, while some things might seem inconsequential, like, why is this guy yelling at me because I stepped on a cricket? You know, there could be, like, I just made that up off the top of my head, so I have no idea if that, you know, has any any grounding in reality.
It could.
Um, but yeah. Oh, you know what? I think I just realized what it is. If I adjust the desktop audio in one scene, it over like it's universal. So I muted you
That
for the
music.
for the starting soon thing, and then it stayed muted when I went over to the main scene. So there was about 20 minutes of me basically talking to myself. That's
Do
lovely.
we need to restart, or are we good?
No, I think we're good. Um, yeah, mistakes happen. Apparently today was just an off day for this podcast. But anyway.
Happens.
But yeah, you know, and that's really all about figuring out what's really bothering you. I have no idea why a man. I don't know why a man would be very angry at you for stepping on a cricket. Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm sure there's an underlying reason other than the fact that it was a cricket. Unless,
Maybe
of
it's
course,
a Buddhist monk.
yeah, I was gonna say, you know, unless there's a religious reason why all life is sacred or something, for them, which again, that is more of an underlying reason. It's not just because it's a cricket; it's because they believe that all life is sacred, and that's what's really bothering them is that you clearly don't at that point. So, I guess that works, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. Clarify first without attacking. It's tempting to take a self-righteous stand, especially if you are sure you are in the right. From your viewpoint, you are justifiably defending yourself against someone who seems to be entirely in the wrong, but it's important to resist the urge to react with emotion. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Because this is probably also going to be its own podcast, but once you start using negative tones or especially negative words, and negative words can mean words like no or don't. Like, those are, like, stop words. We could probably dedicate a whole podcast to stop words, but, like, if you react with negativity either in your words or your voice or your body language, what'll end up happening, believe it or not, is that you could, in fact, be entirely in the right. And you could present to them the best argument that you have, the best argument you can think of for why you are in the right, and they they're in the wrong and they need to stop and this and that.
Yeah.
This is true for standing up for yourself. This is true for debates and things like that. If you attack them, or if they feel like you are attacking them, even if you're not, even if you're trying to be polite, but you are using stop words, or you are letting your emotions, if they're negative emotions, you're letting your emotions show through your tone of voice or your body language, they are going to shut down. And nothing you say to them is going to matter at that point. Because they will not listen to comprehend, they will listen for things to lash back. They will go into defensive mode. So not only is it counterproductive, but it also means that your potentially best work as a debater, or your best defense of yourself, falls completely flat because you made them feel like they have to defend themselves now. And it's all about being, I guess, surviving the encounter, if you will, than actually having a conversation.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I just know that I get caught into that trap of just like, defend myself, instead of actually listen.
And the other problem with that is, again, like I mentioned earlier, they might not even be attacking. They just might have phrased it weird.
Yeah.
Or they may just have a very aggressive way of saying things. And sometimes when I get really excited about things, I talk fast, I talk aggressively, and I can be somewhat intimidating when I am talking about something. And people have felt attacked before when I didn't know how to do it properly. So if you feel attacked, do what we've been talking about before. Make sure you're letting your body language be open. Wait for them to finish, and then just basically just take it at face value. Take exactly what they're saying at face value. Like if you feel like maybe they're being passive aggressive, just take what they're saying at face value and clarify. I'm trying to think of an example that we could use.
Josh, you're terrible.
That's not helpful.
I'm trying to think of a good example.
Yeah,
Josh Gurren Lagann sucks.
No, because those are more like, I don't know. I guess that's not the example I'm looking for. Let me see. Oh well, let's say you're talking to a coworker, and let's say they say something like, "Well, did you drink my coffee?"
Ooh.
You might immediately feel like you need to defend yourself, like that tone of voice, and all you have to do, like if you like go into fight or flight mode, here's how you calm yourself down. Open up your body language, and maybe they're going on some rant about people taking their stuff. And, they're like, oh, people keep taking my sandwiches, my coffee. Did you take my coffee? So, you're wanting to know if I took your coffee, which I didn't. I really, really think that this is probably a pretty common problem, don't you think? That might not be, like, the 100% best thing to do, but what I did there was I took what they said, and just, like, the very last thing they said, and just spat it back to them, reformed into my own way of making sure that I heard them right. And that's a fairly obvious example. I just, for whatever reason, I can't, for the life of me, think of a better example at the moment.
To piggyback off that example, don't be dumb brain me, which I have done this before, and be like, What coffee? And just pretend it doesn't exist. Pretending the problem doesn't exist does not mean the problem goes away.
Right. So, yeah, again, clarify. If they're, like, legitimately ranting at you, or they're saying a lot of things and you didn't catch all of it, just repeat back the last thing that you heard and either answer that or just legitimately pose it as a question. Like, okay, so you're thinking that maybe I might have been one of the people who's taking your stuff? And if they say, "Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that," then you're being good. Their defenses are falling down. They're like, "Oh, wait, no, I didn't mean to accuse you." Or they could actually be accusing you, and they're like, "Yeah, and not that I'd be really mad." Because if you react like, "No, I did not. How dare you?" They're gonna get mad again. But if you respond calmly with, "So you're asking if I took your coffee?" That's prompting a response out of them, so the only responses are yes or no.
Yeah, and it's good that you didn't use the stop word, "No, I didn't use your coffee" there, because even though you might be defending yourself, you don't want to use
right,
the stop word there.
I did, in one of the examples, use the word "didn't," but I didn't say "no." Which "didn't" can be a stop word. I think in that example, which probably could have been phrased better, but again, I started off with repeating what they were saying, and then saying which is not true, or which I didn't, and then move on from there. It always depends on the situation, and that part of the conversation. There are a lot of things that you can say, and believe it or not, it takes a lot of practice, which does move us on to number 6 very well.
Ooh.
So, I'm just going to use that as a segue. Let's see.
Segue.
Practice makes perfect. Once you start getting the hang of what it means to stand up for yourself, it's time to practice asking for what you want as often as possible. That's a dangerous way to phrase that.
I don't know how I feel about that.
When someone says something to you, when someone says something you openly disagree with, or you feel pushed into doing something you don't want to do, say something. That's a better way of putting it.
Yes.
But yeah, don't let people walk over you. I mean, like we're talking about a lot of this stuff, but at the end of the day, if you don't need to be there, one totally valid option is just standing up and saying, "I'm going to leave now," and then you leave.
Done that.
Yeah, it's like...
Definitely have done that.
There is no reason whatsoever to stay in that conversation if it's just going to be hurtful.
I've done that to some friends.
Yeah, that's definitely something that, again, takes practice. You have to know that it's more important to not be a victim or a perpetrator of an attack like that.
Absolutely.
But if that's not an option, or you feel like you don't want to walk away, then the things we've been talking about should hopefully come in handy.
Like, sometimes some of us have family members and stuff like that we don't really have that luxury of getting away.
Research shows it takes 66 days to form a new habit, so stick to the new assertiveness for 2 months and you might be surprised with the results. I'm gonna have to look into that, because that's not what I recall.
Is that number too high or too low?
Too high. A habit, from what I understand, is about 21 days. But that does not mean if you're being more assertive, it's going to take 21 consecutive days. So I'm sure that there is valid information in whatever study this is, and maybe this is more correct. I don't know. But what I'm remembering is if you go for 21 days with no more than a day in between, meaning you have a day of being assertive, and no more than 1 day in between an assertive day and the next assertive day. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily 21 consecutive days, but it is about 21 days of doing that exact same thing for the whole day. Or if the habit is just flipping a switch, 21 days, it's going to be a habit to flip that switch. So maybe this is just phrased weirdly, since the rest of this article is phrased pretty weirdly, and that's not quite what the study says, but in either case, it does take a few weeks to a couple months to form a habit, so practice definitely makes perfect. Practicing on the little things, I guess, is a decent way to do it, like they said earlier in the article.
The fundamentals should be fun.
They should. Or you could also just look in the mirror and practice in the mirror. It works, believe it or not.
Yes. I've had a many mental bout with myself. Even in dreams, I do this stuff sometimes.
Oh, that's always fun. But yeah, in the mirror, you can also look at your own body language as you're talking. So a mirror can be very, very helpful when learning a lot of this stuff. That's about all I have to say for number 6. You got anything else?
No.
Alright. Number 7, be deliberate.
Ooh.
They're actually giving a situation. Here's a situation that many of us have found ourselves in. Sharing space with a messy coworker or a roommate who is a slob. You might have remained silent while growing more aggravated at the situation. It might be tempting to slip into passive-aggressive behavior, such as angrily cleaning up the mess or making snide comments. Try being deliberate instead. Tell the person how you are feeling without being accusatory. Be straightforward with your concerns. Follow up with a simple suggestion that can correct the situation, such as, if you take a minute to tidy up your space at night, it would be a big help. Nothing inherently wrong with that. I just don't think it's necessarily a huge part of standing up for yourself. That's more of how to avoid those situations. Which is good information, but it's not really... I don't know, a lot of these online articles just feel like, well, we gotta have 10. We gotta have 10, so,
Gotta have 10. 10's a nice round number.
10's a nice round number. Oh no, we started running out of numbers. What are we gonna do? I don't know why I said it like that. 8, stand up for your time. We really are getting into just like the nitty-gritty of we need more numbers, aren't we? Yeah.
I like standing up for your time. I don't suffer fools.
Fair enough. I do just because I find it hilarious sometimes. But anyway, time is a precious and limited commodity, and yet we often feel pressured to give it away when we have the ability to say no. That is very important. Your time is very valuable. You may have your entire life ahead of you, but it's still a pretty short life at the end of the day. So there's really no time to give to people who don't necessarily have your best interest in mind.
That's something I keep to a lot on a lot of different situations. I remember in college, if I ever went to a party where the person was like, I don't know. Oh, I don't like video games or anime. I was like, not worth it. Or they're like making fun of me for playing video games or watching anime. I'm like, it's not a battle I want to get into. You're not worth my time.
Yep. Yeah, and that happens to the best of us. Let's see how else they phrase this. There are times when you might have a choice, such as your boss says a project has a high priority, but don't let obligations dictate how you spend the hours of your day. If it is a high priority project, please do the project.
Please, absolutely.
But make sure that you've at least set aside. That's good. Again, I don't. That example doesn't necessarily have to do with standing up for yourself.
Maybe if the boss is like telling you to do busy work that like someone else can do that's more qualified, or I don't know.
Yeah, they go on to clarify like the last sentence in here: push back when it's appropriate, or tactfully disengage from those people or situations, then submerge your schedule? Is your schedule a submarine?
My schedule is incredibly submerged.
I don't know what they're trying to imply with that, but anyway.
I don't either. That one's a weird one. Thumbs down on that one.
Yeah. Number 9, recognize that no one can invalidate you. Well, that's just inherently not true. Unless you're talking about like invalidating you as a person. Let me see.
Let's read into this.
Yeah. You are in complete ownership of your feelings and actions. Yes. Your beliefs, emotions, and thoughts and ideas belong to you, and no one else can tell you what to feel or invalidate your... Okay, now we're getting into dangerous territory. Invalidate your opinions. They can invalidate your opinions. You might be wrong. Go figure. A good rule of thumb that I attempt to go by is I assume that I don't know everything, which is a pretty valid assumption. And I go into a conversation assuming that the person I'm conversing with can teach me something I did not know. So sometimes my opinions have been invalidated by other people in a conversation. Normally, mines are not changed on the spot when it comes to beliefs that they or you hold strongly. So it took a little bit of time for me to process what happened, but my mind did change a few times based on things that people said. People can invalidate your opinions. They just can't invalidate you as a person.
Yeah.
Let's read a little more. Likewise, if you seek to invalidate other people's points of view, you're also sabotaging any chance for problem solving or having an open discussion. No? Like, if you go about it the wrong way, sure, absolutely. If you don't know what you're doing and you just... If you don't follow all of the other rules that we've already talked about, as well as some other rule, like if it's a debate, there are other rules that you can go by to make sure that it's a good debate. But as far as standing up for yourself, if you're following the rest of the rules, this is not the case at all.
I don't like this one.
I don't like it either. I see what they're going for, and there's a better way to put that, which we've already talked about, which is like you use positive language, and that's in order to make sure that you are keeping everything on an even playing field and not making anyone feel defensive, and trying to make sure that you are not feeling defensive as well. So instead of saying, for example, again, we keep going back to the call center examples, but it's just a really easy one to pull up. someone's been waiting on hold for a long time. Do you say, sorry for the wait?
No.
What do you say, Elliot?
You say, I was trying to think. I think you say thank you for your patience, right?
Yeah, something to that effect. Usually, I would say something to the effect of, hi, my name is Josh, standard intro. Thank you so much for your patience. And then I just get right into it. Like, do two things. Act as though everything can be spun in a positive way. It may not be able to, and if it can't, don't force it. But if you can phrase something in a positive way instead of a negative way, do that. And also, keep going. Like, thank you so much for your patience. It sounds like you're having some problems with your computer, is that right? So, what I did there, I told them that I appreciated their patience. So, thank you is no problem. You are, in a way, kind of tricking them. But that's the power of positive language, is usually when you say something positive to someone, there's a standard response that they will have prepared without realizing it. And that will kind of force the conversation to remain calm to an extent. But if you also keep going with the conversation after you've used that way of using positive language, then it doesn't sit too long with them. It doesn't fester. So if you say, thank you so much for your patience, and they say, no problem, and you take too long to go on, they might think, the wait was pretty long, though. We don't need to think about that. We just need to solve the problem. Or in this case, we don't need to think about whatever... if they just get done ranting at you about how they think you've done a terrible job, first thing out of your mouth should be, thank you so much for your feedback. I really appreciate that. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you think that I'm not spending my time, or no, there's a better way to put that. I used a stop word.
Yeah, that's kind of a passive-aggressive.
But yeah, so the idea would be like, I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for that. So if you think that I am using my time in a way that could be improved, let's figure out a way to improve it. Let's make, and or you conversely, if you don't think it needs to be improved, you could say, let's go through everything that I do and just make sure that I am doing the most that I can with my time.
And that's kind of like just a milquetoast answer. If someone gets really up in arms, they're like, no, I don't want help. And they're like, why did you call us then?
Yeah.
You don't want help.
I remember, there was this one guy, I will never forget this customer. Never in my life will I forget this customer. There are some people, and these are the type of people that, I had to hang up on him.
Yeah.
Twice. Actually, no. Let's see. No, I did disconnect the call twice. Literally, first things out of his mouth, I hate company name, and I hate tech support.
Oof.
And then, refused to give his name. I finally ended up getting his name. He didn't have, an official customer card. But I started looking up the phone number and his name and all that, and I saw a series of temporary cards made with names, similar names. And I think he got blacklisted by the company eventually. But what was really funny was, he was like, I'm not going to give you that information. I'm just like, well, I'd love to help you. If I'm going to help you, I'm going to need to have your name. I need to know, because he was trying to, I was not a senior advisor at the time. He was trying to get to a senior advisor. I'm like, I can definitely get you up to them, but I am going to need your name. So could you help me help you? I was being very, very polite. But eventually, he was just so he finally gave me his name. And then started cussing me out the moment I was like, do you have an email you would like to provide? I didn't even say I need your email. It's just like, do you have an email that you would like to provide? What a bleep bleep and a bleep bleep. Yeah, you bleep bleep bleep. I'm like, and at that point I had to tell him that I would disconnect the call if he didn't stop swearing, and he just kept swearing, so I disconnected the call. Later that night, I got a call coming in. I do my little intro, and then I hear him saying, I'm going to start with this. I hate company name, I hate tech support, and I hate Josh even more. And I was like, oh, I do remember you, sir. Are you ready to get this started? Can we get your issue resolved today? Bleep you. Okay. Click. I just disconnected right there. I'm just like, he knows. There's no way he doesn't know. But again, some people are just like that, and some people you need to walk away from. That is someone who, if he wasn't going to be wasting my time, I would have loved to stay on the phone with him, personally. It would have been really stressful that night. I probably would have, had to have a few drinks once I got home after all that, but...
I have to have a few drinks during,
man. But, I had a job to do, and... I went for it. And I kept it positive, and most of the time that'll work, but in situations like that, obviously, it didn't. And number 10, I like this. Do you know why I like number 10?
Did you choose this list just because of that last one?
I didn't even read all the way to number 10 when I chose this.
Oh my gosh.
But I guess more people... in the last couple years, as far as articles at least, I haven't seen any official documentation talking about fake it till you make it, but it seems to be something more people are willing to talk about, which is good. Because the reason I like to talk about it is a lot of people say fake it till you make it is a bad, a bad plan or a bad method. And I'm just like, not really. It's pretty good. You just have to do it right. But let's see how they describe it. Learning to stand up for yourself won't happen overnight. It takes time to grow comfortable with being assertive. Definitely true. While you are in the learning stage, it might help to imagine that you are an actor learning to play a new role. Again, a good way to put that, and things that we've talked about before, especially in our confidence episode. I would say be a little careful with that because, like I mentioned before, me acting like myself, some people have told me that they feel like I'm putting on a performance, which I'm not. But you do run the risk, if you treat it too much like learning to play a role, you will turn it completely into a performance. So you always have to make sure that you are self-aware, even if you're faking it. This one has 2 paragraphs. It's crazy. Imagine that you are the most assertive person you know. How would they handle themselves in a difficult situation? There might be times when you swing from being overly zealous to being too indecisive. Learning to stand up for yourself is like riding a bike. Eventually, you will find the right balance. And yeah, that's for all the problems this article has had. That's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah.
I don't know about necessarily imagine you are the most assertive person you know. I would take smaller steps with that. If you want to talk about assertiveness, yeah, we can definitely, to an extent, we talked about that with confidence. But as far as standing up for yourself, if this is something you really want to work on, take it one step at a time. Start with the body language. Learn to stay calm. Make sure that you clarify to to double check that they are even upset with you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm hearing stuff in my pipes, I guess. But yeah, just take... I mean, honestly, I ragged on number 2 a little bit. Take small but powerful steps. Because I don't think they phrased it very well. But at the same time, yeah, just start with one step at a time. Keep working on it. So that wraps up the article. Do you have anything else to add, Elliot, on that?
Let me pull up my notes here. I say, what did I put in my notes? Don't surround yourself with yes men and just become a blind yes man yourself too. I don't know why I put that there, but I think it's important to just not be in this isolation chamber.
If you surround yourself with yes men, and that's how you get terrible decisions in movies. That's how, on the one hand, that's how Doctor Who for me got ruined because Moffat was surrounded by yes men when he took the helm, and so while he's a great writer, nobody said no. And because of that, he became very, very jaded when it came to standing up for himself, and he just came across as a jerk. Same thing with Rian Johnson and the latest Star Wars movie. The latest episode of Star Wars. Think what you like about the film, but a lot of the problems that a lot of people who didn't like the film had came from the fact that he was almost entirely surrounded by yes men. Rian Johnson was on that film set. So anytime he decided to make a decision, people were just like, "Oh yeah, no, it's great." Only a couple of people were actually challenging what he was saying, but because he was surrounded by yes men the whole time, his responses to people did more damage to the film's reputation than the actual film did. Because he started lashing out at people, he started calling them names, he started accusing them of doing things that they did not do. And, that type of thing, that type of behavior can be part of a problem if you're surrounded by yes men, and 2, if you don't actually know how to have a real conversation. So that's a pretty good one, Elliot.
Oh, I accidentally had my mic muted.
Oops.
Oops. Yeah, well, thanks. I just thought of it on the fly.
Nice.
And yeah, thanks.
Anything else?
Let me check my other notes. I say when talking to people, you want to be agreeable, but just don't blindly go with whatever they're saying, challenge. And I notice, like, whenever I challenge my friends or my friends challenge me, like, on some things, we gain a mutual respect for each other, too. Like, wow, he didn't just roll over on that one point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really think I have anything to add to that.
Is it time to go to the post show?
Yeah, I think so. What do we want to do next time?
Oh, post show. Well, I didn't come up with anything new. So we got all the topics at play that we've talked about.
Right.
I don't think we're ready to do comedy.
Not quite yet.
We got how or where to approach people?
We could probably find a better way of phrasing that, but I guess like how to get out there and start practicing, I guess is what that would be about. Am I getting that right?
Maybe taking the first step? I don't know.
Hmm.
We got self-confidence versus self-worth. Networking. The importance of listening and watching others. Let me see. What else?
You had why do we like what we like, which that's pretty highbrow. We'll have to wait on that one, but
that might even be a philosophy podcast.
It might. Whenever we get those started.
Body language is another one.
Yeah.
We're saving for later.
I'll say let's go with calling it taking your first steps.
Taking your first steps.
And go with that.
I like that.
Yeah, because I think we've given a lot of information, and I know I've had people telling me both from our panels and believe it or not, from our podcast. As
listen?
a few people, a few people here and there have been listening to us, and they've also said, "Oh, this is good stuff, good information." But we haven't really talked all that much about how to start putting it into practice, and taking your first steps would be a good topic to go with. So let's go with that.
Taking your first steps. I like it.
All right. Well, we will see you for our next podcast. Until then, I don't have a catchphrase.
Eating good in the neighborhood.
Good as gravy.